Welcome back to another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. The show was sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems, a two-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals. Gray Media, Ontario's premier social media management, marketing, and content creation company. And REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. Be sure to check out our sponsors and what they have to offer on our site, mindshare101.com. And as always, a big thank you to you to start off today. We've been seeing a huge push from our listeners to leave a review about the show, and it is really awesome to see such positive feedback. I want to remind you, you are what fuels me to keep this going, and your reviews mean the world to me. If you haven't yet, could you please take a quick moment to rate and leave a review, and we're making it super easy. Just go over to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Speaking of reviews, one of the strategies we teach our one-to-one coaching clients is about consistency of your efforts, no matter what else you have going on. Check this out. Corey says, because the social media strategy we've included as part of his marketing mix, he is leveraging his social stories in a big way. And because of them, he recently shared that he got 3 phone calls in one day and 2 referrals. He feels he's building a ton of mindshare just by being consistent each day. And those stories are generally not related to his business in any way. He got a listing and a buyer because of it, and he's increased his social reach by 263% in less than 90 days. Overall, he's doubled the amount of deals he did in less than 6 months. Congrats to you, Corey. Keep up that consistency, my man. Look, we all have something we want to improve on. And I like helping people succeed. In fact, I want to help you succeed. The talks, the trainings, the videos, this podcast, our one-to-one coaching, they're all for you. If we haven't talked coaching together yet, connect with me. Think about how much further we can go on this journey together with a custom-made system and strategy for you. Learn more about our one-to-one coaching by visiting my site, mindshare101.com, and clicking on Coaching. Today's episode is number 219. As the Chief Executive Officer of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, he brings together a wealth of professional experience, the practitioner's perspective, and an intimate understanding of both technology and the real estate landscape. He worked in the real estate profession initially as a salesperson and then as a broker manager prior to joining TRREB's staff as Chief Information Officer in 2002. As TRREB's CEO, his key priorities are the protection of privacy and MLS data, intellectual property rights, while overseeing the creation of a future-facing MLS system. Another major initiative is the research and optimization of the economic competitiveness and livability of the Greater Golden Horseshoe region. In 2015, he initiated TRREB's annual market review and outlook report, which consults policymakers and stakeholders from various sectors on key areas of housing supply and infrastructure improvement for a better future. Over the years, he has also contributed to the efforts of the Ontario Real Estate Association and the Canadian Real Estate Association Board of Directors while chair of the MLS and Technology Council. He was a founding member and remains a current member of the MLS Home Price Index Group. He is the visionary behind the future-facing MLS initiative and the creation of PropTX Innovations, a wholly owned subsidiary of TRREB. He currently participates on 2 North American MLS and technology think tanks and the Council of MLS Board of Directors. He has been recognized by the Swanepoel T360 Group and was also named in the Real Estate Professionals publication list of top industry leaders. And in 2022, he was honored by the Canadian Real Estate Association with the AEN Award of Excellence for outstanding dedication and service to the realtor community. Joining me on this episode of the Mindshare Podcast is CEO of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, Mr. John DiMichelle. John, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me. You didn't have to read that whole thing. Just 2 sentences would have been just fine. Thank you.
You know, we asked them for a bio. They send it off. We start going through it. We're like, okay, we'll cut. No, we don't want to cut that out. Okay, we'll cut. Yeah, we can't cut that out. I mean, some nice accolades, man. Nice accolades.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's been a really fun career so far. Enjoy it. Great people, great business. Love the community.
Well, look, I was going to say, to that itself, I mean, the accolades are certainly there. The accomplishments are there. We thank you all for everything that you're doing for the industry, running the largest real estate board in the country, and dare I say, larger than many of them south of the border. You've got a wonderful reputation out there, within the industry. So good on you for doing that. Seriously.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, CRREB just recently announced that national home sales have hit a 14-year low. The big question becomes this, like, are we in a good market? Are we in a bad market? And John, what would you say that it takes for agents to succeed in this current market?
That's when people say that, they forget about actually putting it into context. We just went through something that has only happened once in over 100 years, which is a pandemic. And during the pandemic, would anybody have been able to guess that real estate would have been the anchor of the economy? Would anybody have guessed that we would have done so many transactions and seen that run up in a very short period of time? And without it, where would governments be today when you talk about land transfer tax, the economic spin-offs from it all? So perhaps we should look at it in a different light. Is it because we've had such a run up? If you were to do it in aggregate, would you see probably a steadiness? Yes, it's not as good as it was in February of 2022. We know that we've seen changes in the marketplace. But I think, fundamentally, this is what I'm seeing in the market is people starting to get used to the idea that this is the new reality. This is the new economy. And once people get used to the thought that these are going to be the interest rates, we're seeing evidence of that now. Transactions are being done, and some of them in multiples. So we're seeing an uptick in the activity as people start getting accustomed to the new reality, I think. So I don't think realtors have to do anything special other than continue to do their work and, get some good coaching. And
I like that last part.
Well, no, it's important. And I didn't say that just to,
No, I know.
But I mean that some people have not gone through this type of a marketplace. They started, it was moving pretty well since 2017. After 2017, we saw that uptick. It's continued, and they've never really had to face this, where you've got sellers that are still thinking of that they're pricing it in 2021 days. You've got buyers who are saying, I want to see when the bottom gets here. Usually when the bottom's gotten there, you've missed it, right? So it's just about getting to work, really. And having been a realtor, gone through some bad times myself, and as a broker, same sort of thing. It's about continuing, just nose to the grindstone, get your job done, work your sphere, make sure you're telling everybody what you know to be true, and they're going to look at homes. People are still going to open houses. It's an interesting time.
A lot of great points that were brought up there. I think first and foremost, when we look at the market itself, and we go back, I mean, we're talking, forget about 2019, 2016, 2017, but we go back even further than that. Houses sitting on the market 30, 60, 90 days is a very normal thing in real estate, right? 30, 60, 90 seconds is not normal. No. Right. So, I mean, again, I think we're in a much more normal market right now in terms of what's going on. We're just coming off of the high of how maybe easy it was to do a transaction at a certain time and the pace that we did them at. In this case here now, we've got a lot of agents that are looking, going, okay, what do I do now? And it's to what you just said. Keep your nose to the grind. Keep doing what you do. You don't need to up and change anything. Work your sphere and things will be okay. And as people get into more normalcy about that, I think that people are just going to start to realize, hey, I've got my groove. I'm okay.
So with my broker hat squarely on,
yeah,
you have to have your pipeline full, right? You fill it up, and eventually people start to go through it. And as you want to get all those needs in place for yourself as well as your clients, so that they realize this is my realtor, this is the person I'm working with. Continue to do your job. Eventually, buyer's going to buy and a seller's going to sell. If that's Absolutely. What their intent is, it happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we know that, I mean, even a few years ago, there was a lot of people putting their hands up to do something based on the probably overhyped market of like, maybe even keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, my neighbor's doing it. I'm going to do it now. I got to take advantage. Now what we're seeing is the same idea happening, but it's the complete opposite of I'm going to wait. And everybody just wants to wait. So when we look at that, I personally look at the mainstream media as being the catalyst behind what shifted this all. And if we look at this as an industry, how would you suggest we combat that negative narrative from the media? And again, to preface that, it's that thing of, media's going, hey, rates are up, doom and gloom, market slow, things aren't selling. So everybody's thinking, oh my God, bad time for real estate. Yet we know the realities of that. That's not really the case. So I think as an industry, if we come out and we actually collectively start to combat that by having individual conversations with our clients, by maybe leveraging through our marketing, we can change that. What would you say about that in terms of like a message to the industry about that?
You said, how do we combat the media? Well, I've been trying to do that for many, many years, and it's very difficult. So they're going to say what they want to say. Like by now, we should have had 20 centimeters on the ground if we listened to the stories, right? I mean, right. That's what we heard. It's not the case. I'm always wary about those things, but I can say this. They're not really sensationalizing it the way I thought they would, but they are talking about some of the pain points, no doubt. I'm not sure that it helps the consumer at this point in time, but we do know that the interest rates are higher. So will there be a qualifying issue for certain people? Perhaps in the short term, but if someone says, look, I want to buy a house. What do I have to do to buy a house? I'm going to come up with a down payment. So maybe they're not going to do it in 6 months. Maybe it'll take them 8 months. Maybe it'll take them 12. But as long as they have the goal and they're still doing all the fundamentals, they're going to buy homes. I think the message is, if I was, going to manage this message, I would say the fundamentals are still pretty good. Jobs are out there, even though people are trying to talk about, a recession issue. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think that that's crazy. People are working. People are still functioning. They're traveling. The world seems to be normal to me, or whatever you want to call normal.
Yeah, the new normal, whatever.
Would you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Absolutely, I would.
But the rates are higher. So now it might take a little longer to actually get what you need before you can start moving into homes. Will prices moderate? Probably. We seem to see that now. Mm-hmm. But will that be the same in a year from now? Hard to say.
Look, I would say this is that if we go back to, again, pre-pandemic numbers, and we're seeing our numbers kind of coming back to that range, the reality, I think something that everybody's got to put in perspective is those numbers were already very high when they got up to there. And I mean, for homeowners, it's a beautiful thing. Maybe for home buyers, it's not as easy. But the numbers aren't bad. And what we've seen them kind of come back down to being those ones from pre-pandemic, great numbers. So in terms of opportunity, it's like, hey, go find the people that are looking to do something. As you said a moment ago, go find them. And there's deals to be done.
And they're building, right? And maybe not at the same pace as they anticipate. Maybe they're not going to get the 1.5 million homes.
Right.
Sorry, that's ambitious. But if you get half, right? If they get half and they create that missing middle we all have been talking about, TRREB coined the phrase for since 2017 and before. If we look at that in its entirety, then will certain home prices moderate? Of course they will. I mean, if you have the supply, the demand with 400,000 people coming into the country, 500,000 a year, and 70% of them landing in the Greater Golden Horseshoe, I think we're going to have that balance still out there, unfortunately. And so it's going to take time to get to the point where real price pressure exists, unless absolute devastation in a recession where nobody's working. That's a different animal. Then you start seeing things like power sales and whatnot. I just don't see that happening. I see a moderate, slow increase. I think the fall will be a bit better, personally, as people start thinking, hey, I want to get in. I don't care, right?
Look, I think we're gonna see that by the spring. As the good weather starts to come around, the psyche start to change, the mindset starts to get a little bit more excited about good, just getting outside. And I mean, when we talk about, normal, and we talk, I think we're there. I mean, if we were going to hit that recession, would that not have happened over the past few years? We're coming out of this now. So I think there's a lot of positives out there. And again, it comes back to what you're doing in a day to go and drive, more business. I want to come back to the shovels in the ground in a moment here, but how would you finish this sentence? A realtor's purpose is to
help their clients achieve their dreams.
Okay.
By making a complex process less complex and more tailored to each of the individual's needs.
I like that. So I'm gonna take that and make an action step now for everybody tuned in and say to you all that to what John just said, and I do agree with that, is to help people achieve their dreams, to understand that everybody's an individual. And what it really means now is it means about educating yourself and understanding what's going on in the market and be able to answer people's questions and remembering that it's really about what they're looking to achieve. And if you can help them achieve that, you'll achieve more. So have those individual conversations with your contacts, really work that sphere because again, there are deals to be had. We just got to go and get them. Now, John, what would you say an agent's biggest challenge is each day? I mean, could we say today, right now, it is the media? Could we say it's the interest rate? What would you suggest? Maybe it's none of those two. Maybe you're thinking something else.
No, I think I think those things you got to get used to that as a realtor. Like I know people that are doing deals regular basis.
Yep.
Now they've been in the market have been doing it for quite some time. They have a process themselves. They have a business plan, a way of conducting their business, and they're continuing, maybe not at the same pace, but still doing deals because they themselves are very disciplined in how they do things. And I would say that when you talk about the concept of the work that has to be done, the most important thing is to still believe that you are out there to help people achieve. And that's it. It might not take as little time as it was before. And the actual the period of time for people to make their decision, because it's hard to make the decision. You might decide to buy, but then it's harder to pull the trigger in this market because there's so uncertainty. So I don't believe it's that. It's more along the lines that I want to do this. You as a realtor should be helping them achieve by giving them as much real information, not media information, real information of what's going on. Here are your options. Here's what's happening. Look, here's the marketplace. This is what's available. And as listings come on, and I think we're going to see more listings. As listings continue to come on, they're going to have more options and they'll be able to find what they want. But it's up to the realtor to tell them what's really going on, in my opinion. So, and give them evidence. I'm evidence-based decision making,
yes.
Right? This is my motto.
Yep.
Everybody will tell you that on the board. That's what I say repeatedly. So if you give them evidence, it's harder for them to say, well, this does this, or it doesn't make sense. They'll say, this makes sense.
You just hit the nail on the head, and again, I want to echo that in a big way because it's really important we understand. It's like people are looking for answers right now. Our agents are looking for answers right now. What do I do? How do I go find that deal? Oh man, I'm slow. It didn't start off the way I want to. Figure out what you can do to be a positive conduit of information, share with people what the reality is, show them the evidence, and you'll have people listening to you more than they will the mainstream media. And now, again, when it comes to the narrative and it comes to the direction of what people are doing, they're going to look to you as a confident. They're going to look to you as somebody who's a trusted advisor that's able to help them move forward. And now they'll trust in the process. So
to your point, when I first started, one of the guys in my world said to me, it's either $10,000 or 10,000 people you choose.
What was that?
And I went, well, either you spend $10,000 to market yourself or you go and get yourself in front of 10,000 people. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting thing to say. And I know a lot of people don't believe in open houses. I'm not saying one thing or another, but boy, it's a pretty easy way to get in front of people. Getting belly to belly, industry term, is one of the ways to actually get the job done. And because they get to know who you are, even it's in that for that instant that you actually with people. But a lot of people say, you know what, I really like that guy. That David Greenspan, good guy, right? Maybe we should call him. Even if you spent 3 months doing that and you get one person, it's one more, right? Yeah. So I never understood why people don't do it. I understand why some people don't do it. They don't have to. But if you're just starting or in a market like this, I want to get in front of as many people as possible, personally.
Hey, I'll tell you this, trends right now, we know that we're hearing open houses are kicking ass in a good way. We know that door knocking has always worked. Obviously, in the moment where pandemic was there and we were told not to is a different story. But outside of that, we know that of the 4% of realtors that actually door knock, 99% say they see business. I'm hearing, and I know everybody's going to choke when I use this word, but I'm hearing cold calling is back and working, right? So between open houses, door knocks, and cold calls, the old school, you're getting a lot more belly to belly. And it's very different than putting out video and just being on social media and just being behind the keyboard. Now people are back out there. And if we do look at it from a mentality, okay, pandemic came in and everybody went, whoa, we're not supposed to be together. So everybody separated. Well, now it's like, wow, we're allowed to be together. People are coming back and actually enjoying the process. And this is part of, what people need to be, or our agents need to be focused on, of where they can see opportunities. Because I'm with you. The open houses are a wonderful opportunity. I'm hearing amazing success stories.
I'm going to change one of the things I said earlier that you repeated, that belly to belly.
Yep.
I met a friend of mine I haven't seen in many years, and had a hug. She said heart to heart, and I went, oh, that's better than belly to belly.
Yeah, I like that. I like
heart
that.
Heart to heart. That was not cool. I thought that was one of the coolest lines. So I'm going to change that now.
Well, it's better than the one I use of like shaking hands and kissing babies, right? So I guess heart to heart is talk about an old school line, right?
Oh, that's good.
Hey, speaking of another report, and I mentioned this to you prior to getting on air, but recent reports showed that over 70,000 agents are members of TRREB. Which again makes it the largest board in the country, bigger than many of the boards down south of the border. Tell me, are the numbers accurate? And if so, what do we feel the reason is why over 85% of agents are doing less than 5 deals? Can we just bring some clarity? Because I know it's been on social a bunch, and I figured it's an opportunity here to kind of clarify what this is about.
Sure. So when I see those reports, I kind of wonder where they're getting the data. If they're just using MarketWatch, remember MarketWatch is just GTA. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason we continue to do MarketWatch in its iteration is because it's a time series from literally the beginning of time when we started doing this. So I think the oldest MarketWatch is somewhere in the 80s. And we only do the GTA because it is a time series that gives you trends and so many different other things. But when you look at that, so let's say it's 70,000 transactions, which is sort of what we're predicting, between 70 and 75 this year, depending on market forces. But let's say 70 to 75. So there's two ends, right? So already you're at 140,000 ends, right? But when we do outside the GTA, and I've got some evidence on that, of course, outside of the GTA, we're doing as much as 25% more just outside of the GTA that we don't include in the MarketWatch. And those are only listings that we can count. We cannot count the buy side because we don't actually bring that into our system. So from what we hear from our friends outside, that at least 20% of all the other transactions are done by a TRREB member. If we add in commercial and rentals, those transactions go up to about anywhere between 220 to 300,000 transactions that are included in the entirety of TRREB. So those are the real numbers. Mm-hmm. And it does not include the fact that our members are involved with about 70% of the new home transactions. So when someone says something like that, I shake my head and say, well, you're kind of using a very small sample. You're not really looking at the entire picture. And there's about usually anywhere between 20 and 40,000 transactions in the new home space, including assignments and whatnot a year, depending on the year, depending on how many starts there are. So those numbers are really skewed down. And again, pretty sensationalized and pretty wrong, in my opinion, because you're not really counting the other sectors, in particular, outside of the GTA. So very hard to track that. Maybe someday we'll have those metrics, but we're hoping to do that as time wears on at kind of exciting times. And we'll talk about some of that stuff later, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's important for everybody to know the truth that obviously people are transacting. Otherwise, why would they be in the business?
And you know what? I think it's and thank you for allowing the question to be asked, because I think that there was good clarification there. And you just brought up a wonderful point. And I think that everybody's really got to take that one into consideration as well, is that 50% of those deals on the other end are not really being tracked. Everything outside the GTA is not being tracked. And so, yes, members are doing more transactions than the numbers are reporting. And so, again, skewed numbers. Thank you for the clarification on that. I think that
look at the rental report. We publish that every quarter too, and you can see how many rentals are being done. The commercial sector, all those things are being done. So, we have to be a little bit more ourselves understanding of the way real estate is actually done, and then you'll see that those numbers that people report are meaningless.
Yeah. Fair enough. And look, the other thing I would say to everybody too is, as we want to pay attention to the numbers, as we want to look at what other people are doing, one of the reminders I got for everybody is focus on what you're doing, right? If you want to raise the number of deals that you are doing, forget about what anybody else around you is doing. Focus on what you need to do, right? And we come back to, and John, you said this a moment ago, but it's your circle, it's your sphere. Connect with those people, right? Continue to be there for them. Continue to share the positive information about what's happening, where the opportunities in this market are, and you will find the deals that are available to you. And now, whether you look at the stats, you don't look at the stats, you're not really going to be part of those stats that you're not happy about. In fact, you'll be very happy with where you're at. Now, switching gears here a little bit. I know that I know you love your technology, and I guess the first question of that, before we get into a little bit of a deeper combo, would be: is real estate an online business, a tech business, or is real estate still a relationship business?
Well, I think the tech is tool. It's a tool. It's not the same as the relationship. I remember again, sorry, I have to go back.
Go.
As salesperson. So we would teach people, this is my doctor, this is my dentist, here's my lawyer, there's my accountant, this is my realtor. Right.
And sorry, John, forgive me 1 second. For everybody again tuned in, understand John was on the street at a point in his career in real estate. So a lot of what's coming is it's not just from a CEO perspective, but it's you've got real life experience doing this.
I got boxes of
I figured I would just clarify that, right? There is evidence. There is evidence here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly. No, 100%. And then as a broker, you get to oversee, and you can see where the success and how they do it. I know guys who've been like 20, 30 years top of their company, and they still do the basics. But don't make me go there because I want to, but I won't. But I forget the question. What was the question?
The basics work. No, it's just around, is it a relationship business or a technology business?
It is. It's a relationship business. Always a relationship business. And you maintain your clients. I don't want to sell them one home. I want to sell them 7. I know these are all like cliches, but they're factual, right? So the business is, technology is a tool. We're delivering a bunch of it to help this area where we can, because MLS is foundational. And as we know that the new generations, they are very tech savvy and they're connected and they want to do a lot of stuff themselves. So MLS has to provide that through you, the realtor. So as the realtor empowers the client who already is empowered themselves technologically. I mean, we carry around these phones. When I was at university, our math and computer building was less powerful than a phone, and it was massive, right? And I remember someone saying to me, "Oh, remember this, one of these days we'll be carrying something like this around." Who would have thought that? Yeah. But people are very, very technically adept. And so they want to do a lot of the stuff themselves. But our philosophy, it should be through the realtor. The realtor should be providing these services. And but it is still a relationship, the trusted professional, the realtor.
Yeah. And I like the response on that. I think that you definitely in this day and age need to embrace the technology. We're still working with groups that we're training everywhere, about leveraging the power of video. There's still a lot of people, even after the 2-3 years that we went through a pandemic, that are still hesitant. And I think that it's something you got to take advantage of, much the same as we come back to the heart to heart, of getting together with people. That's where it comes down to, because much the same, when we look at leveraging technology through our social media channels, and again, the video, this podcast, any email blast we put out, you can send a message and sort of spray and pray and hope that people will click like, watch it, connect with you. But much the same, when I put that message out there and you see it, it doesn't demand a response from you to me. I mean, you can engage if you want to, but it doesn't demand it. Whereas if I said to you today, like right now, like, John, how are you? And you just sat there looking at me blankly, be it by video or in person together, I'd look at you like, did you hear me? And he's like, yeah, I just didn't want to answer you. Well, what do you mean? We're having a conversation. And it's funny because we can laugh about that, but that's really what happens on a technology perspective. Whereas when you're in person with people, you get that back and forth. You're putting people on the spot to answer a question and come up with a response, which now allows you, from a sales perspective, to actually uncover more, dig for that need more, and then satisfy that. And well, where does business come from, right?
Well, I think that's a really good point. The trusted advisor, the trusted negotiator, the trusted professional, that you want to make sure that they're coming to you with those questions, and you want to position yourself to be the person with the best answers, I think. And I think you've hit the nail on the head too. Like at the end of the day, technology will maybe deliver people, but ultimately it'll be what you do after that point.
Exactly. So, we saw recently that, I position it this way, is that fraud has been, unfortunately, a common issue. I know it's not even just as of late, but as of late, we've heard the stories of the folks that have gone away on vacation, only to come home and somehow their house has been sold. How does this happen to somebody? But more so, what is TRREB doing to help mitigate this or even completely alleviate this in our industry? And really where I'm going down is this road of more about the blockchain solution that you're working on right now to assist in all of this. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, thank you for the question. I think that this is an important piece going forward. And as early days as some people think it is, it's not. The fundamental is, how can that, that's a really good question. How can that happen considering we have lawyers involved, we have FinTrack responsibilities, we have regulatory rules? How does that happen? Well, in my opinion, it's because it's too easy to get it to make it happen. It's not foolproof. No matter what we do, it's never foolproof because you can't code for criminals. Can't code against them.
Right.
But behavior is probably the most important piece. I'm very frustrated with some of the things you hear in the media. And then eventually it came out, I believe someone said that it was actually a group of people, organized crime or something, doing some of these things. And they're still doing it today. So I still don't understand why I could register on lien on your property without you actually being involved. So now I've asked TRREB to come up with a tool, which they've had in the past. It's called PIN monitoring. I haven't even asked them if I could say this, but it doesn't matter. I think it's important that they can actually, if something is registered on title, I should be notified the moment that happens. Fair?
Fair. Yeah, fair. If it's my home, I'd love to know. Absolutely. You know what? When somebody logged here, and let me just parlay that right now to back that statement up. And we all know this. When somebody goes to log into, let's say, your Gmail account,
and
it's not you or Facebook, you get a notification that says, "Hey, was this you?" Sorry, great. Yeah.
Well,
great.
Perfect. So why can't we do that with the greatest asset and the hugest debt that we've ever carried? How come we don't get notified of that if they can do that on Google? Right. It's crazy. Right. So I know Terranet's got, they're looking at it. They used to have this PIN monitoring. It's a very modest fee. And I think everybody, if it was me and it was available, I'd do it today. Mm-hmm. Right. And I just pulled a report myself using through Jira Warehouse to see if there's anything registered on the title. Because when I heard these people are finding homes that have zero mortgage, putting a mortgage on it and taking the money, and now they're gone. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's part of the problem, that I think the system has got a lot of flaws. We're designing a system right now. We're in the process of building it to keep and I had a meeting this morning with a large financial and insurance institution to talk about it, because they're all in. This is something that will prevent wire fraud. Wire fraud's a $30 billion industry in the United States, and realtors are getting caught in that net and getting sued because someone found out about the lawyer's email or all these things, and they spoof the lawyer and someone sends funds. It's crazy. It's happened here in Canada a few times. Wire fraud is a problem. In terms of title fraud, that's something else that, with our partnership with TerraNet, and they are partners with us with PropTex, We're in a joint venture to stop this and build the systems that will prevent these types of things from happening through blockchain. It's an immutable document. It's a trusted block of information that only special credentials, sovereign digital identity, will allow you to access. And so will the other people who are accessing it. And the company I was dealing with this morning will actually help usher and take the complexities out of the transaction by using this environment to help realtors and the client go through the steps with constant communication for things like this. If the funds have been placed, everybody gets a notification that's been placed. And what we want to do is prevent this nonsense, because we all kind of get painted with the same brush when this happens in the media. And I think that's got to stop. And the technology exists. Let's just get it done.
It's funny because it sort of goes hand in hand with like the conversation, like, is it a technology business or a relationship business? We know the business is done through relationships, yet technology is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. We've already alluded to the phone and the way that's changed over the duration of the career in this game already. There's a lot of things there. And I mean, one of the thoughts that I had there when I thought about blockchain, I'm going, this has to do with lawyers and agents partaking in illegal activity, and not all agents, and not all lawyers, but some. And thinking to myself, how does this blockchain solution help the agent instead of hinder them, based on maybe the percentage or how often this is actually happening? We know it happens, but how big of a market is that from this fraud? And I mean, that's not really the point there, but it was the thought that I had, like, is this going to hinder people? And as I'm listening to your answer and I'm watching the process and then making the connection with, like, Google sends it to me. Yeah, this is the exact set of my life. I would like to know if something's going on. And so if we can make that easier, and as you're saying, you've got certain, partners in place that you're working together with now that are going to help make this a lot simpler, I think this can only be beneficial. And it goes down the road of where we're going in this world with technology.
Well, I think you're right, and I believe it. In fact, imagine everybody having this sovereign digital identity who's accessing the blockchain, that it actually ties into the emotional side of your life, which is money. Mm-hmm. So if this is like your wallet that you have today, whatever the wallet is, are you really going to give those credentials away? Because I'll tell you, if I'm just giving you simple credentials to access Stratus or our systems realm today, and you only had an email and a password, everybody's going to get that because you're not emotionally tied in. But if this was your ATM, you might give them your card, but you'll give them your PIN on your knees with your hands tied behind your back. And then you might give them your PIN, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And now we've been able to alleviate a big part of what's going on out there, because that's huge, man. I mean, you got to feel for those folks that come back and they're going, what do you mean my house is not my house?
Exactly. How does that even happen? And how do we allow it? Why?
Well, and this is the thing, right? So now, speaking of houses, we're continuing the conversation on, but, and we had sort of said this earlier on in the conversation about, shovels in the ground. And I wanted to come to that. We know that that's been just an ongoing topic of discussion for I don't even know how long now. Yet we're seeing that the numbers are reported that we're down 52% for new builds, specifically here in Toronto. And in the same breath, we're reading about the need for sustainable housing being the solution. And I got to say that as a Canadian homeowner, one, why, if we need more shovels on the ground, why are we in fact seeing less? But much the same, and I guess the even bigger picture to me at least might be like, do we feel that sustainable housing is the actual answer to solutions that Canadians are having around the concept of home ownership?
No, I think it's an option, though. I think it's a choice. So I'll talk about sustainable housing first.
Yep.
Sustainable communities, sustainable products. I had a conversation with a guy after I did my presentation the other day, and he was very upset. He goes, "You should be talking about building homes, not just it." And I said, "Look, we were the guys who started beating the drum on more supply in 2017. Finally, people have caught up. I'm not going to argue as to why they're not doing it, because I don't understand it either. They're talking about it, but I tell you what I do see. I see a ton of bridges being built. I see a lot of infrastructure, because that's the first step. Get the infrastructure where it should be. Get the Despite what people think about the new highways and all these things, look, these are important for building. If you don't have them, it's going to be hard to develop. It's hard to build homes. You can't just build condos everywhere. It's just not the answer.
I would agree completely with that. Like it's tiring to see condos going up and then you're not seeing the infrastructure side. But I know that in a lot of places we are seeing that. And it's like when we drive down the street, we say, why is so much construction on the roads?
Yeah.
Sewage system.
And
right.
Well, and you don't have that transitional neighborhood. So we've got people, single people, empty nesters, widows and widowers that live in these 3,000 square foot homes, 22,000 to 3,000 square feet in the city. And they're rattling around in there because this is where they want to live. This is where their friends are. This is where their butcher is. This is where their stores are. This is where they want to live. But there's no transition in or out. So if you think about it, so let's say you have a neighborhood that has a condo at one end of the street, same neighborhood. Then you have townhouses. So people transition. Condo, townhouse, semi, detached, maybe, right? Maybe they're satisfied with each of those things. But when you're on the other side of life, now you're going detached, maybe townhouse, condo, right? But they're all in the same community. We have to think this way. So as you build sustainable communities and I'm talking also in the other concept of sustainability, which would be green, right? Concepts that, because we're thinking about that now. Oh, well, Canada doesn't have a big footprint. That's true. But we have to start somewhere, because if it's true that we might have a population as many as 17 million in the Greater Golden Horseshoe by 2051, that's not that far off. That's a big number.
Yeah.
So a lot of greenhouse gas. And I'll tell you, some guy changing a flat tire on the 401 creates an 8-mile backlog. That's a lot of carbon in the air, right? So we need to do better there. We need to think about that. But let's talk about that transitional community more than anything. Okay. I think that when they're developing in new subdivisions today, they have to have the concept of transition. They have to also bring in the concept of sustainable building, because it's available. Why? When you go to buy a new home, they ask you about tiles, they ask you about kitchen colors and all that stuff, but they don't say, hey, are you going to put a nest in? Because if you're going to put a nest in, maybe we can put it in for you right away, right? Like, why don't they talk about sustainable things? Why can't they say, do you want solar panels? Why don't you have more efficient windows? They don't give you those choices. Why not?
Okay. So I like the spin on sustainable. I like that a lot, actually. Because I sort of took that in a different light when I was thinking about that and reading about that and the way I interpret it. But I like the way you've changed that up. And I think it is important. I think that there's also a really good point there about, because I know in some subdivisions you look and go, I can't believe they're putting up a condo there. You got a great point, though. This is people's livelihoods. This is where they are. This is where family is. This is where they operate. There's some serious validity to, why that's happening. Switching gears from that, I got a few things I want to cover with you before our time's up today, because there was a recent announcement which was really big, and a big congratulations on this one. But all in all, first, you are a massive catalyst to to when it comes to MLS system. We know that, and I think it's great. BDAR and TRREB have just basically agreed to get together. What does this mean for BDAR members? And I know through speaking with a bunch of them, questions around fees have come up. And I don't know if we can talk to that today. I don't know if this is, there, but how does this set the tone? How does this affect, I guess, the BDAR member? Because it's probably not going to affect the TRREB member so much. I guess they'll have some more access as well. But how does it affect the BDAR member from a fees perspective? And then in the bigger picture, how does this set the tone for kind of the go forward with other boards?
Two good questions. I can't get into specifics about fees because I think that's separate, and people will always say, "Well, you shouldn't talk about that." But I can say this: we're very, very excited about this. Grateful for the leadership at BDAR and their sense of what's important to the marketplace, to the members and the consumers. We already had, I think, somewhere in the order of 800 dual members up there, which is a huge number. And, when you look at the entire picture with interboard costs and all those things, it makes little sense to have these extra costs for all parties in order to do that. Doesn't mean that they still may not want to have access to other MLS in other areas. That's not the issue. But we're looking at it, okay, if this is already the scenario, we certainly don't want them to have to pay more, bottom line. So at the end of the day, I don't think that's the case. I can't get into specifics because, again, people would be critical of that. But I look at it purely from the standpoint that it's a win. It's a win for members. It's a win for consumers. Right now, if you've got, I could throw up a slide, but in the smallest of markets, in the most extraneous markets, we still have 20% of the listings in their areas that our members are trading all over Ontario. They don't see those 20. There's some markets where it's high as 90, some markets where it's as high as 70% that their members and their consumers don't see. Makes zero sense. So we can't tell people you can't trade where you want to trade. That's silly. But what we can do is try to mitigate the challenges to the consumer and to the realtor. And I think Vidar's visionary approach was, look, this isn't good business. Let's see what we can do with these guys. And sure enough, here we are today. And I think it's going to help everybody.
Oh, I think I believe so. And I think you raised some good points there. And I think at the same time, too, it's again, setting the tone with, how does that go beyond just the Great Golden Horseshoe, but, start moving into different directions as well. How does that all come together? But I think access is a big one. And, as we look at access, CREA's recent announcement to turn Realtor.ca into a for-profit privatized company. I want to ask this question the right way without, obviously going down the wrong road, but can we say it's a good thing? Is it a bad thing for existing members? What does it mean for us long-term? Maybe what should we be doing to prepare for this might be the question.
I'm not sure I can answer that, but I can say this.
Yep.
I did a presentation the other day at an office, a great group of people, and it came up, and I talked briefly to it, and the sentiment around the room, several hundred people, was this is a realtor website created by realtors, funded by realtors. Why is this necessary? And in my opinion, it is the number one real estate website in Canada by a country mile.
Yep.
What needs to change? Okay. I don't even want to answer that question, but I'm just saying.
I don't know that there is an answer for that. Yeah. Look, so, I'm gonna come out and say this just to I'm gonna take some of this right here and say I've been saying this to all the big brands, and I say this on their stages. Like, I'm not going to your website. I'm going to Realtor.ca. It's just what I do as a consumer, as a homeowner. That's where I go. So I'm looking, going, I think they've got everything I kind of need already.
They get a lot of traffic. The consumer uses it. Maybe there's a few things that we would suggest and have that they could do better. And certainly, but that would be the realtor's perspective. My fear is that the moment you actually go out and put it in the hands of, I don't know, they haven't really told us their plan. I have no idea what their plan really is. But I can tell you this, if they're selling it off, which it seems to be, even if it's an investment on another side, look, I've been around that world as well. And I know that at the end, there is an exit strategy by the investor at some point in time. And usually it's, based on 10 times value, right? So a venture capitalist is there to make money. I'm not sure, again, what their plans are because I don't know. So I'm kind of like guessing. But I'm still trying to figure out what is the problem they're trying to fix because we haven't really had that conversation. I'm not fully seeing it either.
When we look at something like this, I think that oftentimes you look and say, we're gonna grow the amount of people we've got here. So therefore, so we can be bigger. We're going to find ways to generate revenue because we've got more people that need to be paid. And then from there, what does the exit strategy look like? So is this start to become, just a play? Is this something that is better for us? And I think there's a lot of that still needs to be learned. Here, I would beg the question around exclusive listings and this whole suggestion that's going to be voted on, I think, in the spring, if I'm accurate about that, around, being able to take exclusives or not anymore. And I think that people should have that right to do that. But again, is this completely just self-serving to CREA?
I don't think so. The first part with Realtor.ca, I'm curious as to what really is behind that. But the concept of realtor cooperation is important. And I don't know if you know about the United States, but they went through their clear cooperation issues. Now they've got these things ensconced, then people get it. There's two things that I think are really important with this. Real estate, the MLS system, realtors work within what's the concept of a cooperative. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So is it fair then that I'm going to sequester 2,000 listings somewhere else that only a small group get to play and see?
Okay, so if I just throw it out as devil's advocate for conversation for a moment, what if I am that seller who's like, I just don't want my stuff to be public out there?
Sure. And that's a very valid point. So we've actually had people that are celebrities or, heads of state,
there you go. Yep.
deposed heads of state.
Yeah.
Right. Of course. But we're not saying you have to get rid of exclusives. That's not what the concept is. The concept is if you have an exclusive listing that you should not, because you're telling me the person wants privacy, then why are you marketing it anyway? You can market it one-to-one, which is normally what these guys do. Mm-hmm. They'll call their sphere. Mm-hmm. They'll call their realtor sphere and say, look, I've got this house. I know you work in this space. Do you have anybody? Because this guy just can't be made public whatsoever. We had actually one celebrity who made a mistake and posted something. And then all of a sudden there's 200 screaming fans in the lobby of the condo.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's more than 200 actually, caused a problem. So they figured out where it was and blah, blah, blah. So that can't happen. And of course, you should be able to take that listing, keep it exclusive. But if you're going to market, it should be one-to-one, not one-to-many. The moment you put it out one-to-many, then you're lying about what you're really doing. Right. So I think that's, in my opinion, is a problem. And you're also doing not just the seller a disservice, other realtors and other consumers that may have wanted to buy that house if it's not on MLS. And I think that's really the fundamental here. Imagine this, because I'm not going to answer this question. Yep. If they ever ask that question, I don't want to be the person who has to answer this. Mr. Greenspan, you run the MLS, the largest board in Canada, and one could say the world. Mm-hmm. Is it true that you're calling for supply, and yet there's about 10,000 listings on this that they call exclusive that are hidden from the majority of consumers and realtors? How do you answer that question?
You know what? I didn't realize I was running that MLS, so I haven't really thought about this yet, Mr. DiMichelle. Maybe I can get back to you on that. It's a great question.
Yeah, sure.
I don't
call me. Call me.
I think it's a tricky one. I think there's a lot of mixed opinions about that. And I think these are some of the topics. And I thank you for entertaining the conversation on this one, right? Because these are some of the topics that people are talking about. There's a lot of folks that don't understand what's going on. Others who fully understand it and are either for or against. So I think, again, just being able to have the opportunity to kind of bring it up today. Again, I thank you for entertaining that part of it. Now, we just mentioned that TRREB being, largest board in the country, one in North America, possibly the world. Not only are we the largest in Canada, and even one of the largest to our friends like down south of us. And they usually dwarf a lot of the Canadian companies, but TRREB doesn't allow that. TRREB is one of those ones that they don't dwarf. I did see the recent announcement that TRREB made about SkySlope. I thought maybe I'd ask you to share more about that, or kind of go down the road and just say to you, what are maybe your kind of two favorite initiatives that TRREB is currently working on for the members?
I'm going to give you a list.
Yeah, don't forget to. Dave.
Say, I won't spend time on Realm, but if you haven't seen Realm, folks, I suggest you go to a course and learn what Realm is. Realm is it is future facing. It is an amazing product. I think people will be very pleased. It has the whole collaborate piece built right in and has Terranet built right in. So when you're looking at the listing, you'll see the registry information below as well as the demographics. It's all in one particular dashboard that we're hoping to build as time wears on. It's already there, but I encourage you to take a couple courses. I would say SkySlope is an exciting product because it gives us flexibility and it starts to mesh right into what we're hoping to build with in the process of building with blockchain. Mm-hmm. So that document becomes the immutable document that will always be there in the block, can't touch it, single source of truth, and all the other pieces that form that block of that transaction. And they're already, in my opinion, head and shoulders above other products that are already in the field. A lot of people complain about web forms, but they're happy if they want to use them. But eventually, if they try SkySlope, they'll see where the future is and what we're hoping to accomplish with that. But I think if I was going to point to, I'm going to mention 3 other things.
Yep.
RESPE AI. I know a lot of people have talked about it or have seen it. RESPE is a way to use photos to create more intelligence and a better search capability. Once we have RESPE in place, it actually looks at the photos and says, okay, let's say you're tootling through and you say, you know what, just show me everything that has a kitchen that looks like this. So if it's a white kitchen, it'll bring you just white kitchens. Show me people that listings that have cathedral ceilings. They'll show you those. Show me a listing listings that looks like the front of this house. It'll show you those. So wow. It's really, really fundamentally cool. I made a statement a few years back at NAR during a session, about 1,500 people in the room. I said, well, search is dead. And audible gasp. Yeah, like, why? I said, well, AI is going to push it to you. Once you ask, it's just going to continue to send it to you till you tell it to stop. And I think that's fundamentally cool with RESPE AI. The other thing is ListTrack. ListTrack, if you're sending your listings up to Korea, well, they haven't really fixed it yet, but they will be sending this. But right now, any place that you've sent your listings, you'll get a report back through ListTrack as whether it's been opened, if it's been emailed, et cetera, et cetera. This is a tool you'll be able to show your client, your seller, look, this is what's happening with my marketing. This is how many people are looking at your listing. And I could be a broker again, but I won't right now on how you can use that information.
Yeah.
Yeah, in different ways, right? And the other cool thing is HoodQ. HoodQ is going to be HoodQ will be a game changer. We already have some HoodQ reports out there right now, but fundamentally, HoodQ is going to be usher in the age of the lifestyle search. So instead of starting your search with not just the neighborhood, you might say neighborhood, but you might say, I want to be this far away from the subway or this far away from the GO train station. I want to be close to this particular service. And those are the things you'll ask. It'll score, and then it'll show you listings with a score based on your lifestyle search, not by saying I want a 3-bedroom home in this neighborhood with a 2-car garage. Having been a realtor, this is a fair statement because it happened to me many times. They start off saying, I want a 2-story home with 4 bedrooms and 2-car garage. They end up buying a bungalow with 3 bedrooms and a single-car garage because their lifestyle suited this neighborhood and they like this better. So lifestyle will become a way people will start searching for homes, guaranteed, in the future.
Some very cool stuff coming down the pipe, like a lot of technology, obviously, which is, again, part of our world. I think that when we look at some of the AI stuff as well, and I think to some of the apps, I mean, I think immediately Google's one of them. Pinterest is another one where you can almost zoom into a particular part of the picture and say, like, show me similar. And it pulls that up. So I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when it comes to the home search, because I think that one of the things for me, like I know Jennifer, she's more concerned about, the inside of the home and the kitchen and the space she's got, where I'm looking at like the backyard and I'm looking at the garage space, and maybe very stereotypical what I just said for both of them. It's the truth though. We both have sort of different desires. And I know when I see a house that I really like, it's like, well, show me more houses like that, because maybe the one I like is not even close to me. Maybe the numbers are too high, but what is close to me that might look similar? So I think that's very, very cool stuff.
Well, okay. Like, we did not rehearse this, folks. Like, no, literally, I had this conversation this morning. I said to someone, wouldn't it be nice if I could select when I receive the listing, what I want to see first in pictures? Because I'm like you. I want to see the backyard. Yeah. I want to see what it looks like. And imagine if instead of the front of the house, I got to see those photos first rather than having to go through them all in order to see them. That would be cool. And I swear we did not rehearse that. No, you know what? But it's bang on though. That's exactly, it's funny because that's exactly what I do. I like click on it and I go like the crazy scroll, show me the backyard. Amazing.
Right?
Amazing.
I start from the backyard. That's interesting. Yeah, no, I like that. John, there's a lot that you take on in a day, and noticeably from the conversation we've had today, and I thank you sincerely for it. There's a lot of amazing things that you are a catalyst for, that you are bringing to this industry. For as busy of a guy as you are, and for how much you accomplish in a day, at the end of your day, how do you know it's been a successful day for you?
If I fall asleep at 9 o'clock. Oh, wait a minute. That might be my age showing. No. How do I know? You know what? My days don't really stop. It's funny because I still continue to have conversations. And as long as I'm having conversations and things are progressing and I can see that things have actually happened during that day and we're still talking, it's been a good day. And I really feel strongly that we've got so many exciting opportunities and things to consider that I don't think it will ever be like that. Oh, today was a finite day. Even when you sign a contract, even when you start, then the job begins. So it's all exciting to me. Just the fact that I wake up every morning saying, okay, I'm going to work today is exciting for me.
Great answer, my friend. Very nice answer. We like to ask that question at the end, and I got to tell you, 219 episodes deep. Yes, there's been a few solo episodes in the mix, but for every guest that we've ever asked, the conversation or the topic of money has never come up when that question is asked. And you've kept our average at 1,000, so I thank you. Any final words from you to our audience today? Just anything that you want to share with them, parting thoughts about building Mindshares to get more market share, anything you just want to say just before we sign off?
I just want to thank you. I think that this was really fun and good for me, and I'm sure hopefully good for your audience. And I think that conversations like this are meaningful and they're exciting because they give information to people who might get the wrong information, just like the media. I mean, social media is the media. And right now, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to many of those tough things and having the courage to ask them.
Well, John, I thank you for making the time. I know, again, with the busy schedule that you've got, it was an honor to have you on the Mindshare podcast today. And I know that there was definitely a ton of value. And I thank you for allowing me to ask those questions because I know some of them are, we've got to be careful on the wording and just call it what it is. But you walked into them and took them on incredibly well. So I thank you once again for everything and for the time today.
Thank you. And the honor was mine. I really appreciate it, David. Hope to do it again.
You're either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms, or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle, our 31-page ebook, including your free 90-day social media content calendar to help you build more mindshare so that you get more market share. A reminder as well that if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching, an in-person keynote talk for your upcoming event, and or ongoing virtual training, just get in touch with me. We'll set up a consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how we will help you do just that. Don't forget to leave a review of this podcast at www.ratethispodcast.com/Mindshare101 and connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to thank Kits Keep in Touch Systems, Gray Media, and REM Real Estate Magazine for sponsoring the Mindshare podcast. Be sure to visit our site to learn more about what these powerful companies will do to help you grow your business. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.